Hmm.
Μεγάλη είναι το όνομα Διή, βοήθε τον άθλιον ετέκτη την ταύτη. Γίγνω ελεήμων, το ικρό ως της ουδέποτε κακόν απειρής κάτω. Ού και θύσμε της παιχτής ως της επέμβαξε νοσία.
What do you need?
Boy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Χαίρετε.
For you.
Let me know if you need anything else. Let's go.
Let's go. father of the Minotaur. Sure. Crippled. Nothing. Come on.
back against Trump's plan of stopping illegal immigration by having migrants apply for asylum in Mexico first. Mexico would have no reason to do this, Julian said. We all need to share the responsibility. Mexico is already receiving a large number of Central Americans, and the main issue is that we need to move forward in a regional approach. Trump's tough new approach is necessary. Between 350,000 and 400,000 illegal aliens are trying to invade the United States from Central America. That is a near 2-year high. These are not legitimate asylum seekers. They are economic migrants. Businesses want to see them in the country to depress the wages of American workers, and so they abuse the asylum system with phony claims about gang and domestic violence. We will keep you up to date on any new developments in this ongoing story. Please like and share this video. Do you want to communicate with us? Then contact us on our email given in the description section of this video. So, what do you think about this news? Please share this news to your social contacts and comment in comment section below. And don't forget to subscribe on.
The Joe Rogan experience.
That's why I get. So I mean, if you Barack Obama's entire cabinet came from an email from Citigroup. Okay, so people trying to say that somehow corruption started on January 20th, 2017, are fooling themselves, and that's what I'm fighting against.
Yes,
on my
you
show.
are. You're one of the only people that are doing that. You're one of the only people that are online that you're not obligated to shill for the left. You're not doing it. But everybody else seems to be. I don't mean everybody else. If you're one of the people that are not, like, fuck you, Joe Rogan.
There's just a handful of people who are not, Joe.
There's so few. There's so few that are calling out people in the Democratic Party for what really is going on. Like, I was infuriated when people that I knew that I was friends with were trying to tell me that Hillary Clinton was a good choice. And that's the same choice. I'm like, look, I don't know if she's murdered people, but I know that I worry that she's murdered people. That's a real. I really wonder. Like this Seth Rich shit.
I know. First of all, just leave. You don't even need to go there. You know,
there's so many other things.
There's so many other things that we know for a fact.
The Clinton Foundation, for instance.
So. The Iraq War. I'm old enough, Joe, to remember when being for the Iraq War was a disqualifier in a Democratic primary. That's where I'm from. That's why she lost to Barack Obama the first goddamn time she ran.
Right.
And all of a sudden we're supposed to, now people, like Joy Behar says, that was a long time ago, forget about it. Why don't you go tell that to a soldier's, to a mother who's got a dead soldier? Why don't you go tell that who just died in an illegal war? Why don't you go tell that to a couple 100,000 Iraqis who are dead? Get over it, it was a long time ago. You fuck. Anyway, so I remember when also, the Bill Clinton was no friend to the working man. In fact, he was this starting of the demise of this country. So, Bill, Ronald Reagan scared the shit out of the Democrats so much that they decided to become like them. And so what Bill Clinton did was he got in bed with Wall Street, the military-industrial complex, Big Pharma, health insurance, and the Koch brothers. He started a thing called the Democratic Leadership Council with Al Gore. They had executives from the Koch brothers on the Democratic Leadership Council. They completely turned their back on the working man. And what happens when you have two parties that are in bed with management? You get Donald Trump. And that's exactly what happened. They gutted welfare. At the same time, they exploded the prison population, called black kids super predators. At the same time, they did NAFTA. And then they deregulated Wall Street, which crashed the economy within 10 years. That's what Democrats did. Democrats did shit that Ronald Reagan could only fucking dream about in his wet dreams. They couldn't pass NAFTA. George Bush couldn't pass NAFTA. It took Bill Clinton to do it. Bill Clinton gave the cover to the other corporate Democrats to go along with it. So that was the beginning of the end for the working class in America. In fact, now, I wouldn't vote for Hillary Clinton, and that's why a lot of people on the left came after me, and they still do.
Well, it was confusing to me that you were saying, hey, if you want to vote for a real progressive, what about Jill Stein?
Yeah, if you vote for a party, here's a program you actually agree with, the Green New Deal.
Right.
So, and we know...
Everybody's like, no, you're throwing away your vote. Like, how are you throwing away your vote?
So we all know for a fact, because of the WikiLeaks emails, that Hillary Clinton had a thing called the Pied Piper strategy, which was, she told her minions in the press, please prop up Donald Trump. Prop him up. Why did she want Donald Trump to be propped up? Because she wanted to run against Donald Trump. Because she knew that she was so repulsive to most of the country, she needed someone who was more repulsive than her. Turns out, that was a bad calculation.
That's a terrible calculation.
So that's called the Pied Piper strategy. And everybody, that's why you turn on Chris Hayes, and he would show Donald Trump's empty podium for an hour instead of a Bernie Sanders. And then he wags his finger at people with no money and no power for not voting for a corporatist war warmonger like Hillary Clinton, who just, why do you think the people in Michigan wouldn't vote for Hillary Clinton? Maybe because she put half of them in fucking prison, or because she passed NAFTA, and Barack Obama was trying to sell TPP at the top of his lungs at the same time she was trying to get working people to vote for her? They know what the fuck was going on, and that's why half the country doesn't vote. But you're gonna wag their finger at the people who actually do vote, who come out and vote their conscience, and they don't fucking prop up evil. You know what the voting for lesser of two evil gets you? Donald fucking Trump.
Well, there's also a really sneaky thing that happens where you have two parties, and one of them you think of as this conservative, warmongering party, which automatically makes the other party the enemy of that.
Yeah, but they're not.
They're not.
Well, we have two pro-war parties, and that's the point. There's not an opposition party. They oppose Trump on the most ridiculous bullshit. They just voted for an extra $160 billion to go to the war machine. $160 billion. Let's remember, Bernie Sanders wanted to pay for free college, which was somewhere around $65 billion. So. And everybody said, he's fucking crazy. How are you going to pay for that? They just did that in a blink of an eye. They passed $160 billion to a war machine that we don't have an enemy to fight. You know, Russia spends $65 billion a year on their military. They're a paper tiger. We got no fucking enemies out there. We have to keep inventing them. And the last enemy they invented was ISIS. ISIS, I don't know if we're supposed to shit our pants over them, Joe, because they have kitchen knives. They'll cut your head off with a kitchen knife. That's what I'm supposed to be afraid of? What the fuck? What? It's amazing how they can keep us scared so they can keep perpetual war going. This is an Orwellian nightmare. And the Democrats right now should be screaming about the Pentagon budget, but they're not screaming about it because they're complicit. They're in it, and that's what's wrong with this country. That's why we can't have nice things. So when they tell you that we're broke and we can't afford stuff, they don't mean we can't afford trillion-dollar wars, trillion-dollar bank bailout, billion-dollar oil subsidies, and prison construction. That's not what they mean. They mean we can't afford shit like healthcare, or education, or roads, or bridges, or firemen, or libraries, or anything that makes your fucking life better. Because whenever they need bombs, they got it. Hey, we're broke for Social Security. We're broke for Medicare. How about for bombs? Oh, we got bomb money. We keep it right to our fucking
that is
drinking
true,
money.
because we're not really in a war in the sense of like World War II or World War I. We're in this weird war of, it's like a calculated war.
They're all economic wars.
Yeah.
Joe. They're all. So we went into Iraq for the oil. Libya is because he wanted to go off the petrodollar.
But it is stunning how much funding this kind of war gets versus all the different social programs that we need in this country.
Yes.
Infrastructure programs.
Yes, and people always think like, well, how are you going to pay for that? We don't have to spend any more money. We can actually spend less money. We don't have to spend $750 billion a year on a military that's bloated. We have 1,000 bases around the world. We don't even know how many bases there are because lots of them are secret.
So what do you say to the argument that we need them in order to stay safe?
It's not true.
That's the big argument, right? The big argument is this is the way we've destroyed ISIS because ISIS was on their way to building up.
We invented
a real
ISIS.
threat.
We invented Al-Qaeda, and then we invented ISIS.
We certainly aided in their
development. And
yeah.
we directly funded them.
Well, people that don't know the whole Mujahideen story, which was Osama bin Laden was our guy.
That's our guy.
He was our guy.
He was an
anti-Russian
anti-Russian freedom fighter.
Yeah.
Is what they called Osama bin Laden.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they didn't need him anymore. So and we're still in Afghanistan 17 years later. 3 more years that war gets a gold watch.
And what do they do? I mean, what do they do to get us out of there? I mean, literally, what is the exit strategy?
There is no exit strategy. There never was an exit strategy. There's no exit strategy from the Mideast. In fact,
a baby, a baby, a puppy, a puppy. Okay, huh? Where's your puppy? Where you go, baby? There, puppy.
they just announced we're going to be permanently in Syria. So, and by the way, the Syrian war is complete bullshit. Those gas attacks now have been completely debunked. I didn't believe them the first time.
So what happened during those gas attacks?
So that's called a false flag. So
Right.
what happens is they wanted the United States to come in on their side to bomb Assad, to overthrow him.
Right.
And so what they would do is they would do a gas attack on their own people and then blame it on Assad. And then
This has been proven
yes,
that they did it?
Yes. And then
Jesus Christ.
and the first time was in, I think, 2013, and Barack Obama wanted to bomb. And I knew it was bullshit then.
Do you remember when everybody freaked out about that?
Yes, and that he didn't bomb them.
Yeah.
Remember, he didn't get to bomb them because
Everybody was like, fuck you.
Yes, he
Yeah.
goes, let's put it to a vote in the Congress. And the people don't want war, Joe.
No.
So the people said, fuck you. And he was like, we're going to do it anyway. Guess what? They did it anyway. They dropped so many bombs on Syria, they ran out of bombs. That's a fact, right? So the Air Force was out of bombs.
Which year was this they did it?
So was it 2015? They dropped so many bombs in the Mideast, they ran out of bombs. That's just a fucking fact. Look it
Well,
up.
if you buy all these bombs, you
gotta
have to
use
use them. I mean, what are you going to do with them? They're
Yeah.
just going to sit around, and what if somebody accidentally sets one off while they're on American soil? I don't want that.
We can't have that happen.
Can't have that.
So, and here's a weird thing that the left is doing right now. They're attacking Donald Trump from the right. And what do I mean by that? So when they want, so they say Donald Trump is a Putin puppet. And the only way you can prove you're not a Putin puppet is you got to bomb somebody. You got to bomb Syria. Remember that? They were like, oh, he's president today because he bombed Syria. Remember that? Fucking Brian Williams almost nutted in his pants.
Well, all he bombed was airstrips.
So that's what they're saying.
Right.
So they go, oh, they bombed airstrips. Oh, you bombed the old planes and not the new planes. So what that is, you're attacking Donald Trump from the right.
Right.
Because left people
Yeah.
are supposed to be for détente, and you're supposed to be anti-war and anti-empire, right? So when you attack Donald Trump, you go, oh, you didn't really bomb them. You're attacking them from the right. You're saying he should be more militaristic, which is fucked up.
Well, it supports the argument that everything is circular, right? That as far right as you get, as far left as you get, you really come to some sort of strange ideological point, like
That's-
0 point.
That can't be true, but not in this instance. Because what's happening there is corporate right-wing Democrats are attacking Trump for not being right enough. What you're talking about is where I'm at, where I'm anti-war, and then there's also anti-war, anti-interventionist people on the right. So a lot of people voted for Donald Trump because of that, because he always said he was an anti-interventionist. He was going to get us out of the Middle East. It was crazy to be
Right.
there and bring our boys home and all. And that's why a lot of people did vote for Trump because of that.
Right.
And that's why a lot of people said they felt more comfortable voting for Trump because Hillary actually promised more war in Syria than he did, and that's turning out to be true because she wanted a no-fly zone, which means we're going to shoot down a Russian jet. Are you fucking crazy?
Right.
So I'm on the left, anti-war. There's no anti-war movement in the country that's represented by a political party right now.
Across the board?
Yes, but you can't be.
Why is it that we're only opposed when you're only opposed to incivility when it's Donald Trump?
Because-
but suddenly Maxine Waters is anti-Maxine.
Because, Ben, you can't walk into a room and see an elephant and a mouse and not know which one is bigger.
But it's not an elephant and a mouse. It's two
But it
elephants.
is really.
I needed 600 officers to protect me at Berkeley. Yes, it's an elephant and an elephant.
Ben Shapiro is a sharp dude. What do I mean by sharp? What do people usually mean when they call somebody sharp? They're intelligent and they have strong social skills. So he jumps into the hornet's nest at Bill Maher's show. He's known to be very conservative, and Bill Maher's known to be very liberal. And I want to break down this interaction because both of these guys are very socially savvy, and they both employ a lot of very advanced moves that I want you to understand. Why? Because I want you to up your social game. I want you, when you're challenged by somebody who maybe has a different belief system than you, or you need to be able to represent yourself. Maybe you're just making an argument at the workplace. You're trying to figure out how you're going to get the manager to give you the schedule you want. This is going to help you be able to handle those things effectively. So let's dive in here and break it down.
I appreciate it. I always say this to conservatives that come on our show. I'm a little jealous of their guts because they have more guts than the liberals. Liberals don't go on conservative shows. They don't even come on this show sometimes.
Okay, that's nice. So Bill Maher, he's trying to make it a nice atmosphere. He's not trying to come out here like you're the enemy. He kind of threw him a bone there. Like, I congratulate you for coming on the show even though you know you have different views. I like that. That's a nice way to do it.
So I appreciate it because you know the crowd is not with you.
I got that impression, yeah.
And, but yeah, and let's be civil, right? That's the tone of the day.
I'm a fan.
Okay, so I'm a fan, well.
Okay, so what happened right there? He says, let's be civil, and Ben says, okay, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of being civil, but Bill interprets that as I'm a fan of the show, and so listen to what he says.
Let's see if I'm a fan. Well, okay, right? That's the tone of the day.
I'm a fan.
Okay, so I'm a fan, well. Let's see if I'm a fan. See if we're each other's fan at the end of this.
All right.
But I just want...
Okay, so what's the important thing there? Ben Shapiro knows he misinterpreted what he was saying, but what if he would have stopped there and said, no, I meant I was a fan of being civil, not a fan of your show. Then he looks like a jerk, right? I'm not a fan of your show. So even though a lot of people, their knee-jerk reaction would be to jump on that and be like, no, I didn't mean I'm a fan of your show. He knew, I got to take that misinterpretation, even though a lot of people watching this on the show and people in the crowd will think I meant I'm a fan, which is not what he wanted to communicate. It was better to live with that misperception and misinterpretation of what he said than to go back and sound like a jerk. That's actually a really powerful thing.
If you're a conservative, aren't you really Team Trump?
Well, it depends on what. So what I've called myself is sometimes Trump. Okay, people said there's never Trump and then there's always Trump. Sometimes Trump meaning that when he does something that I like, I cheer, and when he does something that I hate, which happens, then I boo.
Okay, so what's his answer? So Bill's trying to categorize him and say, listen, it's so polarized at this point that either you're Democrat or you're Republican. Either you're for Trump or against him. And what does he say? He doesn't say, no, I don't believe that. He doesn't say, no, that's not necessarily the case. I see it differently. He gives an example of what he is. So it's much less combative. So as opposed to putting Bill on the defensive by saying you're wrong, he says, here's what I am, but what he considers himself flies in the face of what Bill presupposed that he was. So a really nice way to bring up a dissenting opinion.
If you're a conservative, aren't you really Team Trump?
Well, it depends on what. So what I've called myself is sometimes Trump. Okay, people said there's never Trump and then there's always Trump. Sometimes Trump meaning that when he does something that I like, I cheer, and when he does something that I hate, which happens, then I boo. And I'm booing as loudly as you are when he does something that's really bad. But listen, you're very upset about the Supreme Court nominee. I am very pleased about the Supreme Court nominee as a conservative. Right? He's doing a lot of things that I like in terms of policy now. That doesn't mean that I am cheering his character, because I think that it is very difficult to cheer Donald Trump's character, nor do I think it's appropriate.
Well, so there's been 2 times where he has said things that are commonly not accepted or I should say enjoyed by the Republican Party. He said, I'm not cheering Trump's character, and earlier, if you heard, he said that if Trump does something he doesn't like, he's booing just as loudly as him. So what he's trying to do is build common ground there. Although he threw in the clear dissent, I like the Supreme Court Justice nominee, you clearly don't. He also threw in some common ground, which once again couches the dissent. So you're able to say the same thing. You're able to communicate your same opinion, but you're doing it in a nice way. That makes people like you. Now, I'm sure some of you watch this, I don't care if they like me, it doesn't matter. Well, it should, because if you can accomplish the same thing by expressing the same views that you hold true in a way that is more relatable and more palatable to people, you should do that. More people are going to like you. You're getting all the benefits of being a likable person.
But, see, I don't even know what the Republican beliefs are. I mean, you're a young guy, but you certainly remember 2 years back when they were... beliefs were completely the opposite of what they are now.
Well,
they were
which ones?
Free trade.
Okay, so what happened, that was a quick thing, okay? So Bill was probably queuing up. He was getting some rhythm to go into a whole big thing. He starts it out by making a joke. So you clearly remember at least 2 years ago when the beliefs of the party were completely different than what they are now. But as opposed to Shapiro letting him just roll into that, he immediately stops him and asks for clarity. Which ones which threw Bill off the whole tirade he probably had queued up that he was ready to go. We'll watch it again.
How do you turn on a dime so quickly in a couple of years?
Well, I mean, obviously it's been very frustrating to me to watch so many Republicans do exactly that. I've been incredibly critical of Republicans who have suddenly become fans of Vladimir Putin or have suddenly become fans of tariffs. I think all of that is idiocy.
So what did he do there? He just spent a lot of time building that common ground. Listen, it's hard for me to watch these things happen that he doesn't agree with. It's hard for me to watch this. And then the Vladimir Putin thing, that's a hot button for a lot of people on the Democratic side. So he brings that up to even build that bond in a hot button, which he knows is going to have a big impact. It's smartly worded.
But again, I think that with regard to judges, with regard to taxes, with regard to Middle Eastern policy, particularly Iran and Israel, I'm much more of a fan of President Trump than I certainly would have been of Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama. And by the way, I didn't vote for President Trump in the last election because of my concerns about him.
Okay, so you would not vote for him.
And that's another thing. He ends it, so he was a sandwich. He starts it with, I don't like this either, just like you don't, and I didn't even vote for Trump at the end. So he's sandwiching it with things that are going to build that rapport and agreeable, and in the middle, he's putting in the true dissent.
Democrat under any circumstance or some circumstance?
I mean, I would say some circumstance, but the Democratic Party would have to stop being insane. Meaning that they would actually have to approach something like moderation in terms of policy.
See, that was a mistake in my book. So he said, I don't know, he must have got a little worked up or something, or maybe he was playing, I don't know why, but he says the Democratic Party would have to stop being insane. So that is such, even if that's his belief, that's just such a flamboyant statement that it's just going to make people mad.
The Democratic Party would have to stop being insane. Meaning that they would actually have to approach something like moderation in terms of policy and also present a face that doesn't look like people shouting down people at gas stations or entering restaurants and trying to throw them out.
Okay, well, if you're talking about the civility thing, why don't we start with the Republicans stop saying, lock her up.
Did you see what happened right there? He just got charged with emotion. All of a sudden, boom, look at it. Look at the look at the face. Look at the seriousness. The whole vocal tonality changed.
You don't think that's a worse?
And he got the crowd worked up. The way that you speak these words, what they're saying is important, but the way they deliver them, do they sound like they believe themselves? Do they sound convincing? It's always interesting to me when you see people, maybe you've seen this at your own workplace, there's someone who actually is more qualified to give an answer. Maybe the CEO is asking a question and there's somebody who's very qualified, but when they speak up with their answer, they sound timid. Their vocal projection is bad. They say, I think it's this and this. And then there's some guy who really doesn't know much about it, but he's a confident guy. Maybe he's a sales guy. And he says, no, I saw out there this and this and this. We're going to do this. So many times that guy is going to get heard versus the guy who's actually more qualified. So when these guys are debating, the way they are speaking, their vocal tone, their vocal presence, their vocal strength has a huge, huge impact on that. If you, when you talk, people don't necessarily want to stop and listen. Maybe it's hard for you to keep people's attention, or maybe when you're talking, people kind of walk away from you. You don't feel strong when you talk. I'd encourage you to go to the vocalpowerbootcamp.com, or you can just click up here in the left corner and click on the card and it'll take you there. I've got a video there that'll talk to you about how you can get your voice all dialed in, so you can get that kind of reaction that builded with the crowd right there.
I mean, and it's not just lock her up. He talked about locking Comey up. He talks about locking journalists up. There's a guy who said lock Tim Kaine up. How about we stop the lock them up? Shouldn't the civility argument start there before we care about who gets their entree?
Well, it isn't just about who gets their entree.
So he actually, one of the things Shapiro does really well, he keeps his cool. Because he's got an answer queued up for this that's also emotionally charged, but he didn't try to talk over him. He's not getting all mad. Yeah, but you're trying to talk. He sounds very calm and collected. And now, when he got the final thing, someone's entree, he makes a joke on that. He actually downplays that term, but he grabs it and uses it. That's an advanced thing. A lot of people, when they're sitting on something and they really want to talk, once the other person stops, it's just diarrhea of the mouth. But not only does he not do that, but he incorporates the last thing Bill says as the first thing he says. That's so quick on his feet.
Entree?
Well, it isn't just about who gets their entree. For instance, by the way, I'm not going to make excuses for
which is more important?
Well, I think that All of it is important. If you're going to ask me, I think we
But isn't
can
that
come and
fun?
walk at the same
Isn't that-
time, can't we?
but isn't that-
Can't we
no,
just
but
say
I get-
incivility is bad across the board?
Yes, but you can't be a
Why is it that we're only opposed when
Okay.
you're Democrat, you're only opposed to incivility when it's Donald Trump?
Because-
but suddenly Maxine Waters is anti-Maxine.
Because, Ben, you can't walk into a room and see an elephant and a mouse and not know which one is bigger.
But it's not an elephant and a mouse, it's two
But it
elephants.
is, really?
Yes.
Threatening to
Okay, so
lock us.
this is great.
Suddenly Maxine Waters is anti-Maxine.
Because
So what he's saying, I mean, clearly you can pick up on this, but what he's just saying is both parties are guilty of the same thing. So why are you making a huge deal out of it when Republicans do it, or people on the Republican side do it, and Democrats don't? And now Bill Maher's saying, well, it's not equal. It's a mouse and an elephant. And listen how he responds to this.
Ben, you can't walk into a room and see an elephant and a mouse and not know which one is bigger.
But it's not an elephant and a mouse, it's two
But it
elephants.
is, really?
Yes.
Threatening to lock up
I
journalists.
needed 600 officers to protect me at Berkeley. Yes, it's an elephant and an elephant.
So he brings in a personal example. And you can see his emotion went up when he was doing that too. And here's the thing. When you react to somebody emotionally, this is a very important concept. When you react to someone emotionally, it shows that they're having an impact on you. And typically they have higher status than you, and it shows that you're knocked off your kilter. It's not a good look. But when someone you're talking to is getting emotionally charged and you're debating, you need to keep your emotion near the same level. Otherwise, it's easy for them to roll over you. They just have too much energy. So he raises his emotion and brings up a personal experience. I had to have 600 people, which makes it even easier to get momentum behind you when you bring up an instance that flies in the face of what they're saying and also is personal to you.
100 officers to protect me at Berkeley. Yes, it's an elephant and an elephant. Yes, it's an elephant and an elephant.
Okay,
Joe
but
Biden in 2012 says to Mitt Romney that he's going to put y'all back in chains about black people. This stuff pre-existed, Donald Trump. That's what his terror plummeted.
You notice tonality and note that he continues to talk over him with a quick clip. When you talk over somebody, if you're going to do it slowly, it's going to be easy for them to jump back on it. But he keeps going so fast, it'd be really hard for Bill to try to come back from that or talk over him.
Yes, it's an elephant and an elephant.
Okay,
Joe Biden in 2012 says to Mitt Romney that he's going to put y'all back in chains about black people. This stuff pre-existed, Donald Trump. That's what his terror
That
plummeted.
didn't come from the president at Berkeley.
It came from the vice president when he was saying that Mitt Romney, the cleanest person ever, okay, was the guy who was going to put y'all back in chains. To pretend incivility started with Donald Trump.
No, not incivility, but I'm talking about the
Yeah.
level to which it's at, where you're
I agree with you.
Do you really think Donald Trump respects the rule of law? I mean, if somebody
No, but I think the Constitution itself is a pretty damn durable document, thank God.
I've read your tweets like about
He's just got nice one-liners for everything he says. Like, there's rarely something that Bill says that he just kind of has to accept as true and that he's wrong. He's always got something quick.
Kamala Harris.
Yeah,
But you would vote for Trump over her.
yes.
Tell me why.
Okay, so
Okay, that's a high-status sign from Bill Maher. Because clearly he disagrees with this guy. So a lot of times when people are talking to someone they disagree with, they're never giving him a fair chance to talk. They're always trying to move around, talk over him, dictate the tempo. But Bill says, tell me why, and then sits there and is quiet and has quiet body language. I like that. I mean, that means that he's open to debating facts. I haven't seen that much of Bill Maher, but the stuff that I've seen, he seems pretty open-minded. It's not like he's only in there to lay down what he believes. Like, he's open to new perspectives, and I think that his body language, that move right there, shows that. I like that.
to the social fabric, and I also didn't think he was going to govern conservative because I didn't see a lot of indicators of that. He's governed a lot more conservative than I thought he was going to. And as far as the damage to the social fabric, if he's already done it, I'm not actually mitigating against the damage.
Baby.
from in 2020.
So Ben Shapiro, does he sound confident to you? Is he believable? It sounds like he believes and he's thought these things through quite a bit. If someone comes up to him and says, yeah, but Ben, what about this? You think he's going to be like, oh, I never really thought about it that way. No, he's thought these things through, which makes him ready for anything. When he's talking to someone who has a different view or is trying to attack him or make fun of him or talk trash in any way, he's ready. A personal story about talking trash. I was actually out on a first date just the other day here in Dallas, Texas.
You pooped? Yeah. Okay, change your mom. Come on. Oh, stop. Oh, stop. No. Mother. Mother.
And these three guys sitting to the right of us were getting sauced up, and they decided that they were going to try to talk trash to me to make me look bad in front of her. If you want me to tell you the whole story, you can click right here. There's a video. We'll break down the story, but more importantly, tell you how I handled it so you know you can be confident if someone ever talks trash to you in public or at the workplace. If you want to check out that vocal power boot camp to get your voice strong so people listen to you talk, you can click right there. I'll talk to you soon. You're on a first date. The girl you're with is to your left, three guys on your right seated at a bar. All of a sudden, these three guys start clowning on you in front of your date. What do? Do you have the answer to this? Today I'm going to walk you through a story that happened to me 2 days ago that went down exactly like this. I'm going to tell you how I handled it, and more importantly, break down why I handled it that way. So if you ever find yourself in a situation like this, or maybe if you're not on a first date, maybe you're just in an important meeting with someone else and some people start getting sassy with you, how do you handle it to look good? You actually will look better than if they didn't clown on you at all, because you show that you can actually handle a situation like that where most people would fold up. So as a first date, I was actually at a restaurant right around the corner here in Dallas, Texas. It's got a nice scene. I don't know if you've ever been to STK in Vegas. It's a nice steakhouse. Really good food, really nice layout, but super modern and contemporary. The whole place is lined with speakers. They're playing really good electronic music. Just a really nice, fun, upbeat vibe. So I'm sitting down with this girl, and we're talking, and she's to my left. And I say, hey, I'm going to run to the restroom. She goes, oh, I have to go too. I said, okay, why don't you run and then I'll go after you. She leaves. There's 3 guys to my right that I hadn't even noticed and sit down. Let me tell you, these boys were a little sauced up. I think it was like a Wednesday night at like 10 o'clock, and they'd been hitting the pops pretty hard. So I start talking with them, and they actually live about a block away as well. We were getting along really well, joking around, having a good time. She comes back, sits down, and I excuse myself to run to the restroom. Now I come back, and the tides had changed a little bit. Because they'd seen the girl I was with, and these guys were all my age, and, you know, she's a really cute girl, and so they likely liked her. So what do guys do a lot of times in public situations to try to make the guy they look bad? What if they can make me look like a clown? Well, maybe he's going to get her number. Maybe he'll go on a date with her. Maybe I'll see him out there this Friday if it would have gone poorly, right? That's what they're thinking. That's why guys are always doing that. And what's behind this? What's kind of the implied part of this? When you have 2 of your buddies there, well, you're basically preaching to the choir, right? You got 2 hype men who are going to think whatever you say is so funny, and what I say is stupid. So you don't have much to lose because you got that built-in cushion from your homies around you. So we're talking. I come back. I can tell the energy's changed a little bit, right? And so one of the guys in the middle says, hey, man, where do you get your hair cut? Okay? So I've been out enough that I know a conversation doesn't go from where it was before to where to get your haircut. He was going to make a joke about my hair, right? Now, for those of you guys listening to this saying, no, maybe he was just asking about your haircut. No. You got it. When you go out and it's been out in public as much as I do, you can tell the little nuances where these things are going. This was not a genuine inquiry. Barber that cuts my hair, he was looking for a reason to make a joke, and I knew that. So I responded to him. I could have either ignored him and turned, but I felt like I'd respond to him just to kind of stay upbeat and show that I could deal with it, because she kind of felt it going a little bit weird too. And I said, self-cut. I said, I've been cutting my hair for about 3 years now. The price is right, and it really turns out well. One of his buddies messed up because he was so drunk. He was like, really? Like, kind of like it was almost like cool and surprised. He didn't see the joke in it, whereas his buddy saw it was a joke. And so that really kind of crippled their social status right from the point. Like, his hype man is so dumb he didn't even get the joke. And they kind of knew that. But then the guy in the middle, he tried to hang on it a little bit. And he was like, no. He's like, I didn't want to be a complete jerk. And so I said, no, actually, a buddy of mine introduced me to someone down the street. It's great. And so he goes to say something else, right? I don't exactly remember what it was, but he was going to say, like, oh, that's like, where do you get the style? Something like that, you know, like some stupid follow-up to even hang it on. We're like, cool haircut, man. How'd you pick that style? That's so cool. I love it. I want it, right? That's where he was going with this. So what would you do in that instance? You made a nice, well-timed crack. You know, it's self-cut, right? You're just joking. You're kind of playing and joking. Not taking things seriously. Because if I would have been like, you guys are jerks. You guys are rude. Why are you asking me that? You don't really care about my cut. They're going to be like, oh, it makes me look bad, and their status goes up. Now my tate's like, who am I out with? This dope. So I say, after I say that, I completely just turn and ignore, right? Turn my shoulder, completely engage her in a way that it just seemed like nothing even happened at all. She probably didn't even barely realize that I'm ignoring them at this point. Why? Because a funny crack, and then he kind of tries to, like, continue on with that joke. No upside, right? Because what if I would have made another good crack? Now I'm too engaged, and it's clearly like a non-friendly battle where we're kind of going at each other. Also, think about the hype men. Think about Money Mayweather with his pops right over his shoulder that's going to laugh at everything he says. So even, as I always talk about, when you're in battle of kind of making fun of somebody, you're cracking on somebody, the person who has an emotional reaction is the person who loses. So because he's got his hype men that are going to act like no matter what I say, except for his buddy who messed up on that first crack, they're going to act like whatever I say is dumb, where I can say the coolest thing ever, the funniest thing ever. They're all going to look at each other like, who is this guy, right? It's super easy when you have those kind of numbers. It's easy to do that. So I had no upside of continuing to interact with them at all once it turned bad. Simply turn and interrupt. Turn and ignore. And what's going in my mind is, well, what if they interrupt? What if they do completely ignore? Just turn, literally, give them no peace of mind. The only thing they could possibly do is actually touch my shoulder. That's an aggressive move. If they did that, that would have been a bad move. But all I would have have said is, hey man, just give me a minute, right? So if they're touching my shoulder, we want to know where you got your haircut. They didn't do this, but a lot of people want to play out the worst case scenario in their mind. We want to know where you got your haircut. Hey man, just give me a minute, let me finish this. Talk, never turn back. 5 minutes later, tap on the shoulder. If they do it, hey man, just give me a minute, okay? Let me just finish this conversation, do you mind? Okay, thanks man. Right? Nice tone of voice, strong tonality. By the way, I gotta throw it in now. New tonality boot camp, 30 days of me personally coaching you. So if when you say that, my tonality would be, hey man, can you give me a minute? Hey, give me a minute, I'd like to finish this. Versus, hey man, give me a minute, I'd like to finish this. Do you hear the difference? If you can't do that with your voice, you gotta get your voice dialed in. You're gonna be clowned on so much more if you don't speak in a convincing way. You're an easy target. So touch or click up here if you want to learn more about how to improve your voice. But anyway, so I can handle anything that they possibly do to me because I'm like this now. Just they're stupid. Ignore me. Hey, I'm talking. Don't be rude. I'm talking, right? At this point, blocked them out, ignored them. No more variability. If you follow my videos and you follow my coaching, I love moves you can make socially that don't have to involve any other variables. Because so many instances, you're playing off this. What's this person saying? How's this person looking? And all these different things. With this, nothing. They're completely out of the picture. I handled it. And more importantly, how do I look to her? Wow, that was incredible. This guy first kind of clowned on these 3 guys and then showed higher status and just completely owned the situation, right? Awesome. Great display of status and confidence, being able to handle something like that. Now, I did a video. Have you ever heard of Santana Row in near San Francisco? It's like in San Jose, kind of a fancy strip. I walked into a bar one time there right when they opened, and there was a guy on the side of the bar sitting there, once again kind of sauced up. You're seeing a trend. And he tried to clown on me in front of the 2 waitresses and everybody else at the bar. I handled that a little bit different way. It's one of my favorite videos. You can click here to watch that, and I'll... Walking into a bar, your body language is good, your eye contact is strong. You approach the bar to see 2 beautiful bartenders serving. You say, can I get a kettle and soda? And the minute you open your mouth, gentleman to the left says, what are you doing, man? Ask her out on a date. She's right there. Quit being a wimp. Kelly, what are you doing Monday night? Just ask her, man. What do you do? How do you handle this kind of situation? I'm Barry Cruz, and this is the Charisma Matrix. One of the biggest fears that people have when going into social situations is that they will look bad, and more importantly, look bad in front of other people. So that situation that I laid out was actually something that just happened to me last week, and I'm going to explain to you the way I look at it, everything that I read into as this dude was doing this to me, and how I handled it. And then I'm also going to break down a few alternate scenarios that you could have used to handle it if you didn't want to take the one that I used. But the reason that these kind of scenarios are very important, and the reason that I try to give a lot of real-life examples to you, is because you need the confidence, most importantly, that you can handle anything thrown at you. So if right now you're thinking, man, I really don't know what I would have done if that guy would have said that to me. Well, now you're going to be scared, and that's going to be in any kind of an environment. And that's going to show you're not going to have that swagger, you're not going to have that confidence, you're not going to have that magnetism, because you're going to be a little reserved. Don't mess with me. Don't say anything to me. I can't be too out there. I can't draw too much attention to me, because if I do, it's the long blade of grass that gets cut, or whatever the saying is. So we got to get around that. We got to be 100% sure that in any situation we can handle ourselves socially. So let's start with this one. So when this guy, when I saw him at the bar, he was a better looking guy, a taller guy, very loose, casual body language, and he was kind of joking with one of the bartenders as I walked up there. So what I was inferring as I walked up is this guy probably knows a lot of people, maybe even as the manager here. This is obviously before he said this to me, because I doubt a manager's going to say that to me. But probably has a lot of clout, probably has a lot of social leverage in the situation. Cool. So I walk up to the bar, and I knew when I approach with strong body language, strong eye contact, I'm drawing attention to me. People see, as I always talk about, the minute you walk into a room, the minute you come in their visibility, they're forming an impression of you. And if you come very strong and charismatic, well, it is true. People are going to come after you to test you, to see if you are that strong guy that you're giving off, or can they just say one thing to you? You say, well, ask her out on a date. I'm like, oh, yeah, man, maybe I should, right? 90% of people are going to do that. He's going to put them in their place, and now he's the alpha in the room. He's the one dictating who's able to have that confidence, and it's him. We don't want that. You know, I talked about before how, like, people do little kind of chips at you to test how confident you are. For instance, like in Starbucks in line, if you're talking loud to somebody behind you may just kind of give you just kind of a brief kind of look like you're talking a little bit too loud, just to see how you react, because so many people will fall in line when someone does that. So I know that this guy probably has a lot of social leverage in the situation, probably knows a lot of people. He's obviously very comfortable. Maybe he's a little bit drunk. I'm not sure. Maybe he's just that at ease normally, but I know that. So I approach the bar. It doesn't faze me. It has nothing to do with me right now. I'm just aware of what's going on in the situation. I say, can I get a kettle and soda? You know, good tonality. I know that more people are going to look over when I speak like this. He sees this, and he immediately has to test me. So this is kind of a tough test to get around. So he says, ask her on a date. So what he's really doing is he's doing two things. First of all, he's telling me what to do. So he's trying to get compliant. So he's hoping that I will maybe do what he's doing in a weak way, but most importantly, just laugh and kind of say, oh, yeah, but, you know, have nothing to say in response. So he's testing me for compliance, and he's trying to put me down because he's saying, oh, I know all these girls. You're probably terrible. You're just really embarrassed if I'd say something like that because you've been on 2 dates in your life. So just kind of back off and check yourself, partner. Those are the two things he's going for, and those are the two things he gets most of the time. So I know when he says that, and he says, Kelly, what's your schedule? Now I know that he knows her very well as well, because he's referring to her by name. Maybe he's a regular in the bar, but he seems, his nonverbals seem like he's a high-status guy. It doesn't seem like some guy who's had too many drinks and just belligerent and out of control. It seems like the kind of guy who would do this. He has a level of confidence. And what I know, the minute I hear something like that, I know this is a high-status guy. And the funny thing is, high-status people are the people that you want to meet. They're people you want to have rapport with. And typically, once you get around this kind of tough shield that they put up, they're good people to know. They're nice people. Just like a lot of times you'll hear people that talk about picking up women, when you're talking to an especially beautiful woman, a lot of times she'll have a shield up, and she'll be rude to people that come up. And most people hear this and say, oh, she's so rude. He went up and tried to talk to her. She was rude. What they don't realize is by looking at that from an empathetic situation, she has to do that because she can't spend 30 minutes talking to one of the 500 guys that's going to try to come up to her that night. She has to put that shield up to see who's confident enough to get through that, who she maybe is more interested in spending time talking to and getting to know. So I know, I'm actually, when he does this to me, I'm actually kind of excited because I know I'm going to blow this thing out of the water, and he's probably a pretty cool guy. And one more point on that, these high-status people, whether it be a CEO in a corporation or an entrepreneur you want to meet, they have to have these shields up for the same reason that the cute girl in the bar does, because everyone wants something from him. Everyone knows if I can befriend him and get some rapport, it's good for me. So they have to have kind of this evasive, aloof front, because if somebody really has a reason to talk to them, then they're going to get through that. They're going to be persistent through that, but it's not easy because it exerts social pressure. So he finishes, ask her out on a date. So now I'm feeling the social pressure because both of these waitresses are looking at me. Now there's other tables around looking at me too because I ordered loudly. That got a little attention. And then when he was telling me to ask her on a date, that got even more attention. So people are interested. What's going to happen? Now it's kind of a battle. It's a rivalry. Who's going to fold? Who's going to win? So I've got a lot of social pressure on me. So the technique that I used was one where you infer that they're just the best in a joking way. Teach me. Show me how to do it. That's kind of the mindset you want to have from somebody. So what I said was, oh, yeah, man, you're absolutely right. Wait, you got to show me how to do this. Let me get on my notepad. So I'm going to get a limousine. I'm going to get a dozen roses. Come on, what else, man? What do I need? Okay? So now I'm playing into his joke. I'm not taking it seriously. I'm saying, you're the champ, man. You got to teach me in a very kind of condescending way. So now the bartenders are kind of laughing a little bit. Not too much, because this guy has high status, so they don't want to laugh because this new guy came in, but they're kind of chuckling. And that was really all it took. At that point, he just kind of backed off a little bit. And the funny thing is, I ended up talking to him another half hour. It actually was a real cool guy, and he was a real estate agent in the area, and he was somebody that everyone knew. I ended up bumping into him later in the night at another place, and nice guy, good guy to know. A guy I would have not only never got a chance to know, because some guy clowned on me at the first place I went that night. So really the two things that I did was, number one, you can't be swayed by the social pressure, because if you are, you're never going to have a good line back. Because if you present that in an uncompetent way, he's going to bulldoze me. So if I was like, yeah, man, what should I do? He's going to be like, oh, man, come on, you got to know how to do this. You ever asked a girl out before? He's going to bulldoze me. So you got to come. Like, it's almost like one of those things where you see, like an animal that's very coy, and then it's like not doing anything, and something's kind of attacking it, getting closer, like, is it going to do anything? And then all of a sudden the animal just goes crazy, right? A little bit like that. And I'm just kind of drawing these correlations as we speak, but I come in, you know, strong but aloof. He says these jokes, and all of a sudden I'm, oh yeah, man, you gotta show me how. Let me get on my notepad here. So we're gonna start with a dozen yellow roses, the color of yellow canary diamonds. And we're gonna get a limousine. What else, man? Come on, what else? This is an important deal. I'm about to ask her, right? I'm over the top. What's he gonna do by that? Is he gonna come with higher energy? Does he have anything funnier to say? Because if he answers me now, it's gonna be a logical response to a joke. And anyone, as you know, or as I've taught, that responds logically to a joke or a facetious statement loses. The battle's over. The person who responded logically lost. So he can't say, yeah, man, you're going to get a limousine, you're going to get roses, because at that point I'd be like, yeah, whatever, man, I was just joking. Anyway, and then I'm going to talk to her, right? So it's really almost like a checkmate when you come over the top of that. Now, there may be a few ways to get around that I'm not thinking of right now, but 99% of the time, when you come with this kind of response, you're done. And the cool thing is, you actually got respect from that person, because so few people can do that. This guy's thinking, who is this guy? And once again, he starts assigning these attributes, whether realistic or unrealistic, to you, because you had this amazing response and were not swayed by any of the social pressure that he put on you by taking that jab. As you become more socially confident, people will mess with you and take jabs at you a lot less, because they can sense you can handle yourself. And ironically, it's the very confident people that will still jab at you like this situation. So let's look at another couple ways that we could have handled this. So I could have pretended like I was playing into his frame and then turned it around and clowned on him at the end. I could have said, he could ask her out on a date. I'm like, oh, yeah. Anna, I've loved you ever since I set eyes on you, and I really went out of my way. Our limo driver is here. He's also very proficient in making balloon animals. What do you want? He's going to make you anything. He's right here. Go ahead, request. The sky's the limit. Okay? So, at first he thinks you're playing into it, and then you clown him at the end. I mean, there's a million things you can do, but the most important thing is to not be swayed.
Hey. You be nice to John.
And don't buy into his frame. Make fun of it, go over the top, go underneath it, go around it, but don't be non-responsive, because that's what most people are going to do. They're going to hear that, they're going to feel the social pressure, and they're just going to kind of laugh. They're just going to, yeah, man. So you're from around here, right? They're going to try to change the subject. They're very uncomfortable. They're trying to diffuse the social pressure. We're going to be that animal in the grass that's going to strike, whether it be right over the top. Teach me how to do it, man. Oh, what have you been on, like 100 dates in your life? Where does it start? Where does it start, with the roses? Or, baby, I've known you. We got our personal limo driver. He has a Madrid of talents, including animal balloon making. Right? A lot of things we can do. They're all funny. But the best thing is, when you're challenged like this, and people are looking at you, when you can respond like that, my social value just went through the roof with everyone who was in an earshot of that interaction. Everybody wants to know who you are. Why is this guy able to do this? Is he always in front of people? I always love to list off these attributes because they're very real. For instance, when I was leaving that place, the manager came up and started talking to me, and I said, yeah, you know, it's my first time here. He's like, oh, well, come back later tonight, man. I'll get you a couple rounds of drinks. It's all good. So they're not going to do that to everyone that walks in. The manager was 15 feet behind me, and he saw the whole thing go down. So that's a great illustration, and that's a great concrete example of how people pick up on that who weren't even involved in the situation. direction. I didn't even see him. He was behind me 15 feet. I didn't know he was in an earshot, but obviously he was, because he's not going up to every dope that walks through there, inviting him back and inviting him with a couple rounds of drinks. So have fun with it. The next time you're hit with a real intense jab and you're feeling like you're kind of underwater and you can't breathe and you've got this social pressure and you're getting tight and you're tense and what are you going to do? Think, this is my time to go from 0 to 115 seconds. Everyone's going to see me handle this. This is going to be amazing. This is literally how I feel when I'm approached with stuff like this, because you know you can handle it. And once you handle it once, well, you find that most of these kind of jabs that you'll experience are the same thing over and over. So although this wasn't a premeditated canned response, it was off the hinges, the theory, the premise, he's going to teach me something. He's the best. Or act like you're playing in and flip it at the end. So a lot of times you're going to be able to use these two kind of techniques to combat this no matter what the guy says to you. So get confident, get pumped, feel that grandiose when he says that to you. Ask her on a date. Feel that confidence. Know you're going to kill this guy. You're going to win the battle. You're going to come across as a high-value person to everyone within an earshot. So one more time, how are you going to handle it? Hey, kettle and soda. Hey, man, what are you doing? She's right there. Ask her on a date. Is this going to be your first big date? Kelly, what are you doing on Monday? This guy's got a big question for you. Go ahead. Where'd you go to school?
I just finished grad school at USC.
Oh, the Trojan.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah.
Hey, what are you drinking?
Can't you just think of something better to say?
Hey, where are you coming from?
I just got done with yoga class.
Oh, what's the name of the yoga studio?
Yoga center?
How long have you been doing yoga?
A couple years now.
How many days a week do you do yoga?
2 to 3 times a week.
What time was your class? That's not how you do it.
How do you do it?
The social dirty bomb. One of the biggest problems people have in social interactions is they run out of things to say. Maybe they're done with a thought and they can't think of anything else to bring up that might be pertinent. Maybe the other person doesn't chime in. And in that lull, all those nice feelings of rapport and comfort and maybe even closeness that you've been able to establish with the other person dissipates. One of the theories that I heard that makes a lot of sense to me is you only run out of things to say when you feel like the other person is of higher social value than you, or you put too much importance in the interaction. For instance, think of yourself if you're in a room alone with a kid. You're not going to run out of things to say. And if you have nothing to say, that lull, that silence, you're not going to be upset or nervous or awkward about it. They're going to feel it, so it's not going to become awkward to them. The problem is when you're in interaction that you do care about the outcome, it's almost impossible to mask that awkwardness that you feel when that pause occurs. Therefore, it translates to them and they just kind of want to get out of there. So what we're going to talk about today is a remedy for that. And it's the social dirty bomb. Now, what a dirty bomb is something that people put together where they throw in as many utensils, maybe not utensils, but as many different random materials as they can to cause the most damage. They want the materials, for instance, like screws, nails, bits of glass, pieces of metal, shrapnel. They put it all in the hope that something will spread out and hit the enemy and hurt them. In this instance, we want to put as many different things as we can in our social dirty bomb to help the other person. But in the same way, we want to be sure that something goes out there, that they can grab onto something, they connect with something that they can run with. A lot of times when that awkward lull comes up and the other person kind of feels weird, you can see they're kind of feeling awkward and they walk away, they assume that that's because they didn't have something to say or because they didn't like the other person or they're just waiting for a chance to get out of the conversation. When in actuality, oftentimes, the other person's nervous too, and they're a little stifled in their mind, and they can't come up with something to say. They wish they could, but they feel awkward saying something they felt was weird. They wish you'd say something so they could stick around, but you don't, and so they leave. So what using the social dirty bomb is going to allow you to do is give them every advantage and every chance that they possibly can to contribute in the conversation. If you throw a social dirty bomb and you do it the right way and then they still walk away, the odds are very long that that's going to happen. But if it does, it truly is probable and they were just waiting for a chance to walk away, which happens sometime and it's no big deal at all. But you know you did everything you could, and it's very clear at that point where you stand. So what we're going to do, there's 3 steps to the awkward dirty bomb. Let's hope not. To the social dirty bomb. Number 1, you're going to grab the case. And what that is you're just going to respond to whatever they say. So let's look at the example in the video where she said, oh, I actually just graduated my master's degree from USC. So the first thing you have to do, you grab the case, you just respond. You say, oh, cool. Something very ambiguous, just to address that you heard it, and you're going to follow up with something else. Now, the next thing you want to do is you want to grab 2 different ingredients, nails and screws, glass and metal, 2 different things that you know about her statement that she could possibly grab onto and talk to. So if there's 3 or 4 things that pop to your head, you want to grab the 2 things that are going to be the most interesting, that may spur the most interest and thought from the other person. So for instance, I know that Pete Carroll used to USC. He now coaches for the Seattle Seahawks, but he used to coach for them, and he was kind of a polarizing character. He had an interesting way of coaching. He was very laid back. People say he was more of a kind of a pro mentality coach even in college. But regardless of that, he was very widely known. People either loved him or hated him. So I know that. So either she's going to appreciate my comment that I liked him, or she's going to not, and at least she's going to have something to say. The second thing I was able to think of is I know that the Rose Bowl parade's a really big deal. I remember hearing about how the streets are just crazy packed, and there's a huge migration from that to the actual game in the stadium later. And I know that if she went to school there, she was probably part of that, and it's just absolutely crazy. So I figured there'd be something she could grab onto in that conversational thread too. And then the last thing is what I consider the detonator. So step 1 is get the shell, address it. Oh, very cool. Step 2 is pick 2 interesting, talkable threads, materials that you can slam in that dirty bomb. Number 3 is the ignition, and that's kind of the catch-all. So what I'm going to say at the end is just an open-ended question. How is your experience? So what if by chance she doesn't know who Pete Carroll was, doesn't care about football, and she didn't even hear about the Rose Bowl parade. She was just a bookworm and she never went out. Well, then that social dirty bomb is going to land because she doesn't know either of the 2 genius ideas that I came up for her to talk about. So the last thing I'm going to do is just say, how was your experience? Because that is something that you can grab onto. Anyone can say anything at all. Very open-ended question. So 3 steps. Case, fill it up, detonate it. Before I get into a video that shows the social dirty bomb actually applied in a real-life situation, I want to talk about a couple mistakes that I see people make that you shouldn't do. So in the intro, you see I go, oh, the Trojans. So I made 2 mistakes there. Number 1, I was looking for their response. What I wanted her to say at that point is, oh yeah, you know, the Trojans, hooray, you know them. Very, very try-hard. I'm looking for approval. I'm looking for her to validate that I said the right thing or something cool. I should never do that because I don't have enough social value built up at that point. I just met her, so she doesn't care. The last thing she wants to do is buy into my frame. So when I stop and I say the Trojans with an up, swinging tonality, it's saying, hey, say I'm cool, say what I said was cool, it's okay. Let's say the only thing you could possibly think of is that you knew the school mascot was the Trojans. Well, then say something like, oh, cool, the Trojans. I actually went to San Diego State, and run into that, as opposed to waiting. The second thing, as I touched on briefly before, is the tonality. Never end a statement with an upwards tonality right when you're meeting someone, because once again, it's looking for approval. You're looking for them to say something is okay, and that's very unattractive in both men and women. This isn't just a situation where I'm talking to a girl. If I'm talking to a guy, I'm just meaning it's the exact same thing. So as opposed to saying, say I don't know anything about Los Angeles, but I was there last week, so I say, oh really, I just drove through Los Angeles and I went to a real nice shoe store. Okay, you stop in that upward tonality, and you're waiting, you want them to buy in so much and say, oh cool, what shoe store was it? But you don't have enough leverage built up. They don't care right now. They don't want to. They don't want to contribute that much. So instead, you always want to end with an authoritative downward tonality. And what that expresses and communicates is that you're not looking. You don't care about their reaction. You're just giving your thoughts. You're just expressing yourself. So you might say, oh yeah, I actually just drove through Los Angeles last week. I stopped at a really good shoe store there. So you see how that feels much differently. I'm not looking for a reaction. If she wants to contribute and say, oh, cool, what shoe store was it? Much better. There's a really cool shoe store there. Like you're trying to, like, it's almost like, guess what I did today? Nobody likes that. That's stupid. Nobody wants to jump through your hoops. At this point, you don't have leverage. If your friend comes in from 5 years, like, oh, guess what I did today? They're like, oh, cool, what? But they already have buy-in. You have that relationship, that rapport, that social leverage already built up. So let's jump back in and look how the social dirty bomb plays out in real life. Build the bomb, once again, the shell. Oh, very cool. Add 2 ingredients, 2 talking points. Pete Carroll and the Rose Bowl parade, and then detonate it with a catch-all question at the end. How was your experience? See which one they jump on. They can jump on all 3, they can jump on 1. But you're giving them the ingredients, the brew to make that soup. Let's check it out. Where'd you go to school?
I just finished grad school at USC.
Oh, nice. I was a huge fan of Pete Carroll when he was there. I heard that when the Rose Bowl rolls through, it's just mayhem. How was your experience?
I had so much fun. I love the school, and yeah, when the Rose Bowl's there, it's crazy, but it's great.
All right, cool. So you can see how that's much more natural for them to jump on one of those threads and roll with it. When you use this, you're going to find that very rarely, once you become proficient at pulling different ingredients and putting them in, different talking points, different threads, very rarely will someone not jump on one of those threads, and this really hugely mitigates the risk of running out of things to say. Now, if you do run out of things to say, if you drop the social dirty bomb and they still don't contribute, like I said, probably means they're not too into the conversation. Maybe find someone else to talk to, no big deal at all. But if you want to try one more time to fill that gap, I would suggest just talking about your thoughts and your perspectives. See, it seems like we're taught oftentimes that nobody wants to hear about you. And I'm a big advocate that you want to turn questions around to them as soon as possible, because nobody does care about what your thoughts are for the most part, unless you're friends with them or something's very interesting. So I know it's kind of a pessimistic way to look at things, and it's not completely true, but when you're trying to really be effective at new interactions, you want that frame in your head. But don't be afraid to talk about your thoughts on something like that. So if that didn't hit about the my 2 comments about USC, I might just start talking about college. Like, yeah, you know, actually, when I was in San Diego, there was a surf thing. It's coming up in a week down there. We all go down to Pacific Beach and this and this and this. And then get into plowing. You can check out my video on plowing that kind of gets into more of the specifics of how to do that. But I guess the 2 real tips of what to do to avoid running out of things to say is number 1, employ the social dirty bomb. Pull in as many threads as possible. I shouldn't say as many as possible. Pull them together, pick the best 2, wrap them up, detonate it in a catch-all question. Number 2, if there's a lull, but you feel like they still may want to participate in the conversation, maybe your catch-all question was weak. Maybe you said, you know, how many years did you go? Or you screw up and you say, what year did you graduate? She says, 1998. And you say, oh, you know, too bad. It was a yes-no question as opposed to an open-ended catch-all. Then just start plowing into your thoughts on the pertinent subject. Football you could go to at that point, parades at that point, NFL football, college, dorms, anything. Just go wherever you want. Give a little plow. Give a 30-second plow, a 30-second synopsis, 30-second sermon on the mount about something pertaining to that. It's going to free up their mind. They're going to get out of their head. They're going to become more present. They're going to be able to free think more efficiently and effectively. So at the end of that, odds are they'll be able to jump on something you said in that plowing, or maybe even at that point they're comfortable to go back and say, you know, I actually remember Pete Carroll. He's that gray-haired guy that used to play the piano to hype up the team the nights before the games, right? And they're like, yeah, and then you got it. Then you got by that critical threshold, and you're on your way. You got some momentum, and they're participating. So check it out. Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to know what ingredients, what threads you pull in your dirty bomb, and when in an interaction you felt that it was a good time to employ it, and how it turned out. I'll talk to you soon. When the Rose Bowl parade rolls through, it's awesome. How's your experience?
I loved it.
Oh, no, you're not walking away. When you're first meeting someone, whether it's a woman or at a networking event or a business event, there's one thing I want you to focus on getting right. It's one thing that is going to set the entire relationship, the way the person thinks about you, either on the right foot or the wrong foot. I'm going to give you 3 examples and see if you can guess what it is. Then we'll go back and dissect the interactions and point out exactly what was done right and what wasn't, and how you can apply this in every one of your interactions going forward. Alright, mi amigo, let's jump right in. In this first video, I'm not going to set it up by saying anything. I just want you to watch the interaction and notice in your mind what stands out. Is there anything that's obviously good or bad? What would you change? And then we'll go back and break it down. So what kind of work do you do?
I work in the tech industry here in Austin.
Oh, nice. I actually moved out here to work in the tech industry with my business as well.
Oh, what kind of business do you have?
I have a YouTube business, and so I'm trying to grow it, and so there's a lot of people within internet marketing here that I thought would be kind of synergistic for my business. I just thought it would be good to be here.
Yeah, it's the poppin' place right now.
How do you like living here?
I love it. Austin's amazing. It's growing every single day.
Cool. I've really enjoyed it here too.
Yeah, you love it?
Yeah, it's been a great Not exactly the most epic interaction of all time. But what was wrong with it? It wasn't what I said. I actually said some things that were somewhat engaging. I was talking about why I'm in Austin, the tech industry, things like that. What stood out to you about that interaction that could have been improved? Well, clearly, I was taking it way too seriously. I don't smile. My body language is stiff. I never crack a joke at all. So even though the conversation, the words were fine, when I was sub-communicating with the seriousness, put her followed my lead. She fell into my frame of seriousness. So she took on a very serious, even keel, not smiling, not laughing kind of demeanor. Do you think if you went up to her after that conversation and said, hey, is Baron the kind of guy you'd like to just hang out with, maybe get a drink with sometime and chat about things? She'd be like, no. I don't know what it is, but I wouldn't want to spend time with that guy. Too serious. You're not James Bond. So many people think they're going to be James Bond and not laugh at anything because they're so sophisticated. The jokes just aren't to their caliber. You've got to loosen up and relax. Now, I'm not going to go through that video again. You can rewind it to watch it again, but it's very clear what went on right there. Now, in the next video, I'm going to relax. I'm not going to take it as serious. I'm going to get more animated with my delivery. I'm basically just going to talk the way I would if I wasn't socially stifled. See, a lot of times people go into events or very chic and posh scenes, they get very socially stifled, they get very nervous, and they tense up and they get very serious. So watch how, when I'm not as serious in this interaction, watch what it does to her. Watch how she falls into my frame and takes on another playful, more of a playful kind of mood and demeanor. And then we're going to watch a third one here in the end, the very best situation. This is the second one. This one's going to be much better. Let me know what you think. So what kind of work do you do here?
I'm in the tech industry here.
Oh, that's awesome. I actually moved out here. I have a YouTube channel.
Oh, wow.
And I was thinking because of like the internet marketing community, that's one piece of my business that was really underperforming. So it's like, why not just come out here and take a swing and meet some people?
Definitely, yeah. You're going to meet everybody that you need to here. There's a lot of people here.
Nice, you think so?
Yeah.
That's cool. Dude, everyone I've met here so far seems so nice. How do you like living here?
So I like it. I honestly do. Everybody is definitely Austin vibe. I don't know if you've met
What do you mean by that?
Have you met the Austinites yet?
I've heard the Austinites, and the one thing that I find is it's the Austinites versus Dallas. And the girls are like, in Austin, in Dallas, they wouldn't go out to brunch until they spent 2 hours on their makeup. And then, like here,
Here's the opposite.
You know, they say that, but like living this close to Rainy, when I look out over my balcony, like 90% of the girls are super dressed up in dresses anyway.
Yeah. It's hard. The Austinite, like the real ones, are like the hippie, no makeup, I don't shave my armpits kind of thing.
Oh, that far?
And then like the other side are like the new people, which Austinites hate. So like if I was walking around the streets all dolled up, the Austinites kind of look at you like, ew.
Are there many of them left though?
There are, but they're kind of like...
They're in the dark shadows.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you prefer, I actually haven't been out to Dallas, but like everyone says, I think I might actually prefer the vibe in Dallas. I like it here, but I don't mind, if you're going out, why not get a little bit dressed up and enjoy yourself?
I'm the same way. I like to be...
Okay, cool. So I was actually taking notes while I was watching that. What do you think stood out about that? What are the biggest things that were different that showed that I wasn't as serious about the interaction? Well, first of all, I had a smile on my face basically the whole time. The smile on your face indicates your ease in the situation, you're enjoying yourself, you're having fun. Very important. I was emotionally reactive. So if she said something I either agreed with or disagreed with, it wasn't, oh, why do you think that? It was, what? Why can you think that? Indicates engagement. It's funner to be around and interacting with people who are more emotionally reactive in a right way. That doesn't mean that you ever want to be emotionally reactive, not selecting what you're responding to. You don't want to actually display like a negative emotion if it's something you don't want to, but you typically do want to show a full range of emotions. I'm using more hand gestures and more body gestures. Like I was making a joke about where do they hide in the alleys of Austin, and then I kind of tuck my hands away like someone who comes out from under the bridge. So there's more animated, I guess, body language. I didn't use a funny voice. I'm not saying like it wasn't a funny voice. It wasn't funny. It was different. So when you're talking like this, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, and then in Dallas, they say, well, I wouldn't dare go out. It's a different voice. It's more engaging. You can only do that when you're loose. Try to do that when you're taking yourself very seriously and try to use like a funny, descriptive voice. It's not going to work. And lastly, I'm laughing. So I laugh like 3 times in that short interaction, and that lightens the mood, and that's fun to be around. And look what she does. Look what happens when I do this. She starts laughing. She's smiling the whole time. The state that you feel inside when you're talking to someone is something that they're going to feel. We have neurotransmitters that basically in our brain, they make us feel the same way we think the other person is feeling. So when I'm feeling good, I'm laughing, I'm smiling, I'm animated, she feels that same way. Now, if you asked her after this conversation, hey, is Barry the kind of guy you want to hang out with and get a drink afterwards, just hang out after work and chat, what do you think she'd say? Well, I'm guessing there's a good chance she would. So this one was much, much better, much less serious. The 5 things that I went through on these notes, much better. Now, this last one is going to be even 1 step better. And what's the one thing I'm going to do? I'm actually going to tell you before so you can watch for it. I'm cracking jokes, okay? So I'm not only not serious and really reacting to things I went through, I'm also going to make a few jokes. So see if you can pick them out and then see how she reacts after I say them, and we'll come back and we'll talk after this one.
So what kind of work do you do?
I work here in Austin in the tech industry.
Oh, yeah, you look like a classic tech nerd programmer.
Yeah, you know, the basics.
Yes, and during the office, you got those huge glasses like those you wear, yeah.
Exactly, I have to.
So I moved out here because I have a YouTube channel.
Okay.
And so, yeah, so like, I know the internet marketing is a big deal here. So I figured if I moved down here, like, I could kind of plug in. Yeah, just big belly flop into Austin. It's going to be awesome. When I came out here and I was trying to decide where I wanted to live, I had 1 weekend. And so everyone who lives on West 6 was like, you gotta live on West 6.
Yep.
And everyone on Rainey's like, no, bro, you wanna live on Rainey. And so I decided on Rainey, but what do you think between the 2?
I think Rainy. I think you picked a good choice. So West 6 is awesome, but it does get...
All right, so what do you think if you asked her if she wants to get drinks with Barron, after work? I'm thinking very highly she would, because that was the most engaging. When you use humor like that, the couple jokes that I cracked was that she said she worked in the tech industry. So I said, oh yeah, you look like a traditional computer programmer nerd. Like, clearly she does it, it's sarcastic, it's funny. Then the next one, she's like, why don't you jump into Austin? I was like, yeah, how about a big belly flop into Austin? Just kind of funny plays on words, like show you don't take things seriously. And then it also included some of those other things I talked about. I remember in a couple instances I used different voices. I was like, everyone out on West 6th Street doing this. Like, just, it doesn't even, like, why would a cowboy hick live on the 6th Street, the ritzy part of 6th Street? It doesn't make sense, but it's just more engaging to use different voices. So the final step of departing from the seriousness that holds so many people back in interactions is to actually crack jokes, because that's the final level in not taking yourself seriously. When you do this, it's engaging. You're the kind of person that people want to be around. And don't think, just because you're at some business networking event that it's a black tie event, you got to be dressed up and everyone's drinking champagne, don't think you got to be stiff. Those are the people that hold themselves back. The best networkers. Meet the people who do this for a living. They're very skilled in business development, maybe hedge funds, maybe finance, maybe it's another high-end product. These people definitely carry themselves with a sense of respect, but they're engaging, doing all these things that I said, no matter what the event is, because they know nobody wants to be around somebody who takes themselves too seriously or is too stiff and stifled by social pressure. See, one of the things that this shows is that you're competent, right? Both men and women are attracted to competence. People are attracted to other competent people. Why does this display a high level of competence? Well, it's because when we feel social pressure as humans, we naturally become stifled and retreat into our heads and are not expressive. So our body language comes in, our limbs come close, our voices go from being expressive and being a wide range from up here to down here to now we're talking a little bit more monotone. We're taking less risk. We can't draw attention to ourselves. So when you show that you're basically immune to that social pressure, what you're basically saying is, if It's not that big of a deal. If somebody looks over here because I'm talking loud or because I'm being expressive, I don't care. That doesn't impact me. It's the ultimate level of confidence. So the more social pressure that you feel in an environment, the more behaving in an unstifled, unserious way is going to boost your confidence and your credibility and your charisma immediately. So everyone's now like, who's that guy? Why is that guy acting so free like he's in his own backyard? And this is kind of an important event. That's the guy. That's the rock star. That's the CEO. That's the person that people want to meet. You don't have to be in those positions. People are going to assume and assign very high-level attributes to you when you do this. What's another thing that gives off all the signs of high confidence and being non-socially stifled? The tone of voice, the strength of voice, the confidence in your voice. That goes very quickly when you're in a high social stress situation. The last thing you're doing is talking strong. You're talking more, like I said, a little more monotone, a little more quiet. I don't want the person next to see me. What does that communicate to the person you're with? Well, not a confident person, doesn't come to events like this, doesn't have confidence in himself, doesn't want people to hear what he's saying, all negative attributes. You have to speak. You have to not only speak with a strong tone, but you have to understand how tonality impacts people's perception on you. Now, I don't care what kind of voice you were born with. It doesn't have to do with the level of your voice. Is it low? Is it high? Makes no difference. It's the tonality you use, because the tonality you use is where the communication lies in your tone of voice. Now, if this is something that you don't feel like you have down pat, if you don't feel like the minute you start talking that people respect you and people pay attention to you, you can touch or click up here in the right corner. I put together a free vocal power and tonality checklist so you can get. It's got 5 things that you can go through to be sure you really understand before you go into a big event, or just before every day, to get this on the top of your mind. Go through this thing and it's going to become second nature. So now you're not going to have to think about it. You go into an event, maybe you feel a bit more social pressure, but you know these 5 things, you've thought about it, and you practice them in environments that you don't feel as much social pressure, and now you can start to speak like that. And now people start treating you different. It's amazing how social confidence is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because once you take one little step to display more confidence in a social situation, maybe where a lot of people don't, well, people start treating you a little bit differently. And now your subconscious brain is saying, whoa, I didn't know I could talk and sound that confident in this environment. I thought that people might try to hold me down. I'm going to do it a little bit more. And it snowballs. You get better reactions because you're basically communicating to these people, I'm higher value. I'm higher value than I was before. They treat you like that. It compounds organically. So if that's something you want to learn, download the free checklist. You touch right up here in the right corner. You can click if you're at a desktop and download that, and you'll be off to the races.
Unwrap a Deal is back at Kia, now with no-charge winter tires. Visit kia.ca.
Like, dominating presence, like, over on top of me.
Right.
I can't, like, be cool and relax.
What if I told you I've got something for you that's going to make you more attractive to women? It's going to make you sell more if you're in sales, or be promoted more quickly if you're in business, and it doesn't cost you a thing. The power of your voice as a man is hugely indicative of the success of these things. Let me qualify these statements to you a little bit. Worthy and more dominant. 2 characteristics and attributes that companies look for when they're promoting people. In management, if they've got 4 different guys who are options, and they've got you, who they perceive as a leader, they don't know why, they perceive you that way. The strength of your voice is a huge attribute. They're going to promote you. Now let's look at the attractiveness to women. When women are given the same picture of the same guy, accompanied with 2 different voices, number 1, weak to average, number 2, strong and resonating, great tonality, the women will rate the men significantly higher in attractiveness. So maybe you weren't born with a George Clooney grill. It doesn't matter. We're going to put your best foot forward and make that grill as appealing as possible by having a strong, resounding, respectable voice. In this video, I'm going to give you 3 things you can immediately implement to start taking advantages of all of these things that come with having a nice, strong, resounding, deep voice. So you'll find that when you look at the trajectory and the power of a voice, it's much like a guitar. You hold that a little bit higher, perfect. So this is your stomach, and then the strings are your larynx. So what you want to focus on is having the power lower. Because what does it sound like? Let's see if I can do this. When you're playing like a normal chord, it sounds like this. But then if you play it higher, I don't know if you can tell it's much higher, but when your voice comes out of the top of your throat, when you have stress, your shoulders come up and you can feel the voice coming up towards the top versus your deep chest voice. I'm sure you can hear the difference even right now. The tonality is much different and the deep pitch is much different. So you always want to focus and understand you want to be releasing your voice from as deep down as possible. And notice the tendency that we all as humans have when we get stressed or when we're in situations where there's high value people around us that we really want to impress. A cute girl, you're out of the bar, watch your shoulders creep up, watch your voice come up in your throat. The first step towards improving that is just realizing it's happening. Now, the struggle is when you're in a stressful situation, you can't think about a million things. The last thing on your mind is your tonality. Once you understand your tendency to do so, your brain will work with you. And by understanding you're doing that, you'll be able to check it every once in a while. You're going up, you're a little bit nervous. Hey, how's your night going? Oh shit, it's a little bit high. How's that drink, by the way? I saw this. You can bring it down. And the cool thing is, once again, the kind of self-fulfilling prophecy is once you focus enough to bring your voice down there, you're going to get a different reaction. And then your subconscious is going to see that different reaction. So it's going to kind of encourage you, oh, am I talking too high? Am I stressed? To check that a little bit more. Something I heard years ago that I thought was kind of interesting was they're saying, like, when you're in the grocery store, notice your shoulders. Just because you're around a lot of people, you're crossing a lot of people, not a high stress situation, but where are your shoulders? And a lot of times your shoulders just kind of come up a little bit. Not because you're super stressed, because you're a little bit stressed, a lot different than when you're sitting on your bed in your house. So check these things to understand when you naturally feel stressed, because when you do, your voice is going to creep up the neck, and it's going to sound weak, and it's not going to sound masculine and dominant. All you got to do is focus, be aware. I'm going to bring it back down, and now I'm going to sound a lot stronger, a lot more masculine, especially when you're in situations, once again, where you need to come off strong. Focus on that deep resonating voice that comes from down here. So as a man, we want to use all the tools that can display our masculinity when we need to in our arsenal to understand them. And the biggest one, I truly believe, is your tonality. So brief overview of the way tonality works. There's 3 different tonalities. Rapport seeking, which is considered supplicative, rapport neutral, or rapport breaking. And a quick display after I explain what they are will be given. So tonality that has a rapport seeking edge to it, it's supplicative, ends with a twirl up at the end. It's like something, maybe someone talking to their boss, hey, how's your day? How are you? And not only does it go up at the end, but it may just be high the whole time. So here's how I'm talking normally. Hey, how are you? It immediately jumps up. That's supplicative. That's rapport seeking. That's what people typically use when they're around people who are in authority on them. Maybe in their business, they're higher than them. Or a girl that they think is a little out of their league. Hey, how are you drinking? Right? It's you want something from them. You're communicating, you want something from them. You never want to want anything from anyone. This is a pinnacle of being masculine, being a confident guy. But we'll talk about that another time. Being rapport neutral means you're talking the way I'm talking to you. Up and down inflections in your voice. Just like you talk to a buddy or someone that you're very comfortable with. A rapport breaking is much like a police officer would talk to you. License and registration, please. Do you know how fast you were driving? Do you know how fast you were driving? It's deeper and it trails off with a downward fluctuation in tonality. What does this articulate to them? Well, you're not saying this, but what they're picking up on in your communication, you don't really care about having rapport with them, and you don't want to make friends with them. Rapport breaking tonality, you've got nothing to gain. It's the opposite of being supplicative, where you want something. Hey, maybe it's a real rich guy. Hey, how are you today? Maybe this guy can give me a job and I can make money. How are you? Versus how are you today? So you don't want anything from them. Now, understanding these tonalities is important because most people miscalculate the tone that they're speaking in. So they think they're using a proper tonality for the person they're talking to, but they're typically a half step to a full step in the direction of being more supplicative or rapport seeking. So they're talking to someone who's their equal. Let's say you're in a business setting, and you say, hey, Billy, how's your weekend? And you think it's neutral, but it's up. Well, Billy, he's not a jerk. but people respond to what you tell them. What are you telling him? Hey, Billy, how was your weekend? You know what you're telling him? Yeah, Billy, you're a little bit higher than I am. I'm talking to you kind of like you're a boss. And Billy's subconscious is saying, I don't know why Baron's like this, but he perceives me as being a little higher. Maybe he knows I'm better at him and some things in the company. I don't know why, but now I'm going to kind of start treating him that way. So watch Billy's tone start to take more of a report breaking as you go into that report seeking. Billy's going to be like, yeah, it was good, right? A little more authoritative. So we never want to do that. So the first step is understanding the tone that you're actually presenting. Get out a microphone. The iPhone microphones are pretty good now. All the decent smartphones now. Record them. Put them through a good pair of speakers and check your tone. A nice trick you can do is record a conversation with your boss or with a friend and then ask someone who doesn't know either of those people, another friend, who might I be talking to? What status do they have? Are they my boss? Or do they report to me? What kind of inflections are you picking up on? And a lot of times you're going to realize that you're speaking in a tone that's not proper or the most efficient for that specific person. So we need to understand the right tonality to use. The only way to understand that is to know the actual tone that you're speaking in. Let me look at 3 different examples. I'm going to talk about this weekend. I went to an unbelievably good buffet at the M Resort in Las Vegas. Okay, best buffet.
Dad. Dad.
They are good. Yeah, the seafood ones.
Dad.
So I'm going to say that. So
Dad.
We're seeking. It may sound like this. Hey, I went to the M buffet this weekend. It was so good. Have you been there? Okay, you have been there. Okay, and the report neutral. Hey, I went to the M buffet this weekend. It was really good, even better than I expected. Okay, that's like you're talking to a friend. That's neutral. Now report breaking like a cop. Hey, I went to the M buffet this weekend. It was a lot better than I expected. Those are the 3 different tones. Mix and match them, but understand, once again, in that interaction equilibrium, a dude's clowning on you, the dude thinks he's got something on you. Take that tone half step towards more report breaking. So when you're talking to him like this before, now all of a sudden, you're talking to him a little bit more like this. And he's going to pick up on this, and once again, subconsciously, nobody realizes this. Nobody thinks about things in this depth. But subconsciously, his brain's telling him, all right, back off a little bit. This guy maybe has a little bit higher status than what I initially thought. And then once you see, the cool thing is a symbiotic relationship. Through osmosis, you're going to get more confident. How geeky and scientific can you get?
I like it. I'm so into it.
So through osmosis, it's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy because you're going to sound more confident. He's going to understand you sound more confident. So he's going to start treating you as a higher value person, and it continues to go like this. That's why a lot of times when you take one step in the right direction, it just naturally, your brain wants you to be the best you can be, but you have to prove to it that it's safe and you can take those first steps. So in tonality, take that first step towards being a little more report breaking when it's a situation that you feel like someone's either coming down on you or it's a place you want to really exert your authority. All right, so one of the things you need to understand is how you're perceived differently, your tone, your whole communication, due to your orientation of your body. So when I'm talking to Brooke, when I'm squared up to her to the side, can you tell like this, versus completely like this, it feels much different. So an example may be, hey Brooke, I heard you guys were going to Disney last weekend. How was that? Or, hey Brooke, I heard you guys were going to Disney last weekend. How was that? Now, how does that feel differently to you?
Super intense and almost confrontational because it's like dominating presence like over on top of me.
Right.
I can't like be cool and relaxed.
Right, and it feels like I'm really in your space when I'm squared up, doesn't it? Right, no safe bubble, yeah, get out of here. So the way you can use that with a masculine presence is to just understand how it works. So first of all, let's talk about being empathetic. You don't always want to be this groping masculine man. So let's see someone's getting a little tight. You're talking to maybe a girl and she's showing a little body language, she's backing up a little bit. Just turn your orientation away, continue the conversation, take a little half step. But understand, a lot of guys I see when they see girls getting a little bit overwhelmed, they'll start backing up. That doesn't work. It still feels more intense. So don't worry about the proximity. Just turn your orientation. Now, let's say you're talking to a guy. I was talking about the interaction equilibrium. You want to be on the same level as the other person or a little higher. meaning their perception of your social value is the same. If they're clowning on you, maybe they're talking a little bit disrespectfully to you, or they're talking down to you, well, understand, it's very... easy to exert a little more social pressure or authority just by squaring up to him. Now you're a man. Now they understand that clearly she's a girl, so you're not going to talk to a guy like you do a girl. But they're going to understand as I square up to the camera like this, and you start talking, you're saying the exact same thing, you're using the exact same tone, but it's perceived in a lot more strong way, which is going to help tilt that interaction equilibrium back to get you, because nobody wants to be talked down. The longer someone talks down to you, the more you feel like you're inferior, the more everyone around who sees them talking down to you sees you as inferior. So now you go up to someone else who saw you getting clowned on by this guy, and I don't mean clowned on like he's like, look at this chump getting clowned on, like he's just a little bit snide to you, but you're dealing with it, you're not doing anything to combat that. Now you go up to someone else and they're like, oh, this guy got clowned on pretty easily. They're not thinking this consciously, but in their subconscious, they're thinking low value. So we need to address this immediately. Anyone's talking to us down at all, just use that body orientation, square right up, let them know you're not going to be clowned on. It's a little bit, as she said, confrontational. That's what you want. So that's 3 of the nearly 30 different tips and techniques that you can use to increase the power of your voice and to get those benefits. But because we don't have 5 hours here, I put together a free checklist. You can go right here to download. And it's going to give you the ability to be confident going into a first date or an interview or a big annual meeting with your boss. You go through this checklist, you say, oh yeah, this, remember this. Okay, let's do this beforehand to get warmed up. Let's do this. It's going to set you in a real nice place. Almost as importantly, it's going to get you confident in your head knowing you're going in there sounding strong, where most people go in there sounding a little iffy and a little weak, and they're perceived as not confident in all these different attributes that we don't want. So go here, download that guide, and you'll be able to immediately take a step into becoming that person that commands respect the minute they open their mouth. The minute they talk to people, people stop and listen and look, and they perceive you as a leader.
Let me ask you this. Why in school are we not taught about social skills and how to interact and flirt with members of the opposite sex? It's 2 of the most important things we'll ever do in our lives. Find a mate, someone we marry and spend our entire life with and maybe have kids with, and be successful in business, roll in a corporation, do better at sales. It blows my mind how with all of the curriculum we're teaching kids to code and do all these cool things, we completely neglect advanced social skill. So if you're interested in improving your social skill and all things pertaining to general social interaction up to the most high level, including tonality social interaction, you can click here and I'll tell you a little bit more about some of the things I have that can help you out. Now, if you're at a point where you want to improve with your interaction with someone that you're interested in romantically, maybe you just feel like you're kind of in a rut, you haven't had any dates lately, or haven't had dates with the quality of woman that you know you deserve, you can click right here and we can talk about some stuff that I've got for you that can get you dialed in on that front as well.
You could tell her that her eyes sparkle like the first stars on a summer night. Or that her voice is the sweetest sound you've ever heard. But you'd never say it like that. That's not you.
Good evening. I'm Baron Cruz. Hi, I'm Baron Cruz. Hi, I'm Baron Cruz. Hi, I'm Baron Cruz. Oh, hi, I'm Baron Cruz. Hi there, I'm Baron Cruz. Hey, what's up, dude? I'm Baron Cruz. Hey, I'm Baron Cruz. Hi, I'm Baron Cruz. Hey there, I'm Baron Cruz. I'm Baron Cruz, and I can guarantee that you are underestimating the impact that a first impression has on the entirety of a relationship that you may or may not have. Today, I'm going to give you some examples and some studies to help illustrate the true power that it has, and then more importantly, go into some concepts and tips that you can use immediately to increase the first impression that you're giving off when meeting new people. Welcome to the Charisma Matrix. So you think you got a pretty good feel about how important first impressions are? Well, I'm going to go through some statistics and some data and studies to really drive home the fact about just how lasting first impressions are. It takes 1/10 of a second to make a snap first impression about someone. And if you were to allow people another 5 seconds to change or alter that first impression, 90% of the time it doesn't change. So what does this tell us? Well, it tells us that our bodies and our brains are amazing at making snap decisions about people. We're amazing at assigning accurate attributes about people simply by the way they look. Secondly, we were shown, not us, but a group was shown pictures of people. And then they were given a fact about them. And it was either a good or bad fact, like an experience in their history. Like this person volunteered his time at the 4-H club with the young boys. Or another one is this guy spent a little time in jail. And then afterwards, about 10 minutes later, they gave them another fact, which was the reciprocal of the first. So the first was good, the second was bad, or the first was bad, the second was good. And they used the exact same stories about these people interchangeably. And what they found was that when the good story was told first, well, the goodness resonated far beyond the bad stories. So they said this person volunteered. 10 minutes later, this person did some time in jail. Their overall perception on this person was going to remain very, very positive. Now, if it was the inverse and the negative fact was told before the good, even when it was the exact same facts, well, the negativity stayed in that person's mind, and they continued to think of that person in a negative light. So this goes to show just how important the very first impressions are, even if it's followed with a bunch of great interactions and great knowledge and great additional information is brought about you. If it started negatively, it's very, very hard to get away from that. A study that shows just how amazingly accurate we are at assigning attributes to people without even meeting them is people were shown a photo of someone, and they spent as much time as they wanted, typically between 5 and 10 minutes with them. And they wrote down attributes that they thought this person would have. So income, personality type, character traits, what they might do for a job. And then a month later, they met these people, and it was amazingly accurate how they predicted this person would be, not only in what they did as a work, what they did as a profession, how much money they made, but what they would be like to interact with socially. Were they warm? Were they nice? Were they reserved? Were they outgoing? We're able to accurately predict that. And some people think, evolutionary biologists think, that we spend so many of our resources developing the part of our brain that accurately is able to do that, because it was so important back in the day when we used to run in tribes of 50 and 75, and we'd constantly be meeting new tribes and new people and have to decide instantaneously if they were cool or not, if we trusted them or not. Our brains became very overdeveloped in this aspect, and this study would go to kind of confirm that kind of thought. Lastly, this is kind of an interesting tip. When you meet someone for the first time in person, you're much, much, much more likely to come across in a favorable way as opposed to on the phone or in a video chat. And they haven't really been able to discern why that is, but they do know same people meeting people oftentimes, majority of the time, comes across much better when you can meet them in person. And it's interesting because you would think that if someone was very good vocally, but maybe didn't have a good posture or body language, it'd be better to meet on the phone. But this study showed otherwise. So if you ever have a chance to meet someone and it's going to be an important introduction in person, go that route. So I read a very interesting description and definition of what a first impression is. And what it basically says is a first impression is a person's prediction on what a relationship would be like with you in the future. So think about that for a second. Really what they're trying to say is, what would it be like if I was to continue a relationship, continue to get to know with this person? What would it be like? Do I want to invest? Do I want to stay away? Is it worth my time? How much of my time is it worth? I thought that was kind of a clairvoyant description. They say that first impressions are based on 5 characteristics: likability, attractiveness, trustworthiness, aggressiveness, which is kind of interesting, and competence. So there was a gal who had been in recruiting for 30 plus years, and they wanted to get some best practices from her as far as what she felt and actually running these studies, what she actually responded to when she was narrowing down good or bad candidates. And some of the best practices are, number one, solid eye contact. What this shows is, first of all, you're a confident person. Confident people make longer lasting eye contact. That's a known fact. It's hard. It's very hard to do, especially in a stressful situation if you're not confident. Now, I personally believe that when you're first meeting someone, if you're talking, you should hold eye contact 85% of the time. And if you're listening, I think that should be up to 95% of the time. And I know to a lot of people who don't study this stuff or maybe haven't put a lot of emphasis on social interaction, that sounds very surprising, but I find it very accurate. And people who are described as very charismatic or great salespeople who are at ease in social situations have amazingly strong eye contact, and they hold it for a long time. And you got to be sure you don't do this in a creepy way. A lot of people feel like holding eye contact for a long time in general is creepy. This isn't the case. It shows interest, it shows confidence, and it gives off a lot of other positive attributes. You just want to be sure that you're also giving some nonverbal cues. You know, you're moving around, you're just not a rock like this. So eye contact, number one. Number two, they're good conversationalists. They talk a lot. So it wasn't like they'd ask them a question, they'd give one-word responses. You know, they were ready to fill in the blanks and ready to go a little beyond what the question was asked. So, hey, you know, I heard you grew up in Chicago. Yep, grew up right outside of Chicago. No. They were more like, yeah, I grew up outside of Chicago. I actually took the train in to go to high school, actually in the city for a while. Ended up going out to DePaul and lived in Lincoln Park. It was fantastic. So they're able to elaborate. That puts people at ease. It shows confidence because you're able to speak freely on topics and questions. Lastly, they were comfortable and they were at ease in the environment. And this is indicative through all of your body language, your tonality, and everything else. But this can be very hard to accomplish. So in order to do this, I want to introduce a concept that I have, which is called the comfort loop. And this applies, and this can be applied when you're meeting someone new for the first time. So what happens when you meet someone new for the first time? Well, typically you're both kind of nervous. You're both stressed. Is the other person going to have anything to say? Are they going to be rude? What this is going to be like? So what you need to do is hopefully at some point you can develop to the point that you're confident that when you meet someone new, you can be comfortable and you won't have to use the comfort loop because you'll just be comfortable. But when you are uncomfortable, now both parties are uncomfortable, what you want to do is consciously manage and reduce the signs you're giving off that you're stressed. So what you're going to do is first of all check your tonality. Or using a soft, or using a supplicant, tonality,
Selena's crying.
using a nice, bold, strong, confident tonality.
I can't make her stop. She wants
you.
you.
You're going to be sure your body is very nice and loose, especially your shoulders. And you're also going to be sure you have that strong, solid, confident eye contact. You're going to slow down a little bit, because when we're stressed, we naturally have the tendency to speed up and to talk really fast, and it gives off all those stress signals. Now, these reduced stress signals are going to resonate with the other person through these mirror neurons. So as you lowering the stress signals you're giving off, you're going to lower the stress within them. It's almost like a little bit of a magic trick. But they're going to feel more at ease. And when they feel at ease, they're going to give off lower stress signals, which organically is going to lower your stress. This is why I call it the comfort loop. So, like I said, once you get to the point where you're uncomfortable, well, you're just going to come in comfortable, they're going to come in stressed, but the mirror neurons in them are naturally going to lower their stress level because you're truly uncomfortable. But until you can get to that point, you're going to you're giving off, and this is going to resonate with them, and therefore come back to you and be kind of a little pet snake. Alright, so now let's get some actionable tips that you're going to need. First impression that you're giving off. You know, thinking back to that 1/10 of a second, we need to understand that oftentimes the first impression that we make is going to be completely nonverbal. Because at 1/10 of a second, you're probably not talking to them. And even if you're talking to somebody else, mostly, besides your tonality, they're going to pick up on your physicality and your your nonverbals. So what are the most important components? Well, your dress is going to be very, very important. I've talked in other videos about just how important your dress is, how people assign amazingly different attributes just based on people's dress. So your dress, your posture, your physical fitness. People make a lot of projections and decisions based on someone's physical fitness. Your facial expressions are going to be huge because, as we know, those are very telling. Your comfort level. Are you comfortable? Are your shoulders down? Are you loose? Is your body moving normal? Are you stiff like you're in rigor mortis? And lastly, your eye contact. Now, I'm a huge believer that when you're meeting people, especially socially competent people, eye contact is the biggest teller, especially if you're actually meeting them face to face. You know, if someone's across the room and you're making that first impression just based on that, you can pick up on their eye contact with other people, but mostly with you. When you have super strong, confident eye contact with people, it tells you so much about them. Rarely will you meet someone that when has awesome eye contact, and then they end up being, you know, kind of a dud, not a confident person, not much going. It's very, very telling and indicative of that person's level of confidence. So, the first time they see you is the first time that the impression is starting. So, most people think when you meet, when you shake hands, is when you're forming your first impression. No. The first time they see you across the room, in your car, driving up, wherever it may be, that's where the first impression is forming. So understand that. When you're going to be meeting new people, immediately upon coming in the room, immediately upon leaving your hotel room, you may see people in the hallway, you may see people in the elevator. That's when the first impression starts informing them. That's when it starts to form. Number two, only express positive emotions. That's all you want to do. Never any negative, never any anger, never even any disagreement. You know, studies show you only have to get through 4 minutes and then 95% of the perception is formed. So even if they say something that's grossly against what you believe in, well, at least for 4 minutes, just chill out. You don't have to agree, but don't disagree. Because then if you do confront them with a disagreement after 4 minutes and that initial impression is strong, it's going to be a much more palatable objection that you bring up, as opposed to when they're forming it, you know when you disagree with them, they're going to think of you poorly for the remainder of the relationship. So why not just suck it up and be cool for a few minutes and then bring it up later with a little tact? They're much more likely to receive it the way that you want them to. You want your body to be loose. That's very telling. You want your shoulders to be very loose. You know, stress is shown in our shoulders a lot of times. You'll find them creeping up in tense situations. Just off and check them. Let them hang down real nice and low. You always want to have a canned line. Whether you use it or not is not important, because when you're out meeting people, and I'm referring to more networking events or business events as opposed to on the street, but on the street is fine, but always have something that you know you can say regardless. And, you know, for me, it's probably just, hey, how you doing? How's your day? Or, hey, when did you get in? Just so you know you can be confident in these situations. Not, oh, I hope he doesn't come up to me. What am I going to say? Because you know for sure you've got something to say. So come up with something relevant to the topic. You know, you're there for some sort of a medical device event. And, you know, things you're going to say is, oh, hey, man, I'm Baron. You know, what space of medical device are you in? Okay, so you know you got that. You're confident. From there, whatever they say, you can jump on those threads. But have that confidence that no matter what, you've got something to say. It's going to really show in your overall confidence in the setting. Like the study I referenced earlier, if it's an important meeting, an important person, by all means, go out of your way to meet them in person, because you're much more likely to make a favorable first impression when you do so. Now, remember the comfort loop until you get to that point, and most people are not. It takes a lot of confidence. So when you go up to someone new, you don't have any stress. It's natural in humans. You almost have to be, you know, someone like me who's been doing.
Yeah. Let's do it right now.